Mehdi Hasan is one of the most dangerous voices in Western media. He is an Islamist wolf in progressive sheep's clothing. I'm Oren, an Israeli fighting anti-Western propaganda with ground-level facts. Today, I'm exposing Mehdi Hasan, the perfect poster boy for the Islamist-progressive alliance that is destroying Western civilization from within. This alliance between Islamists and progressive socialists is a bizarre partnership. Why? Because they agree on absolutely nothing. Socialists are secular. Islamists are deeply religious. Socialists claim women's rights are their top priority. The Muslim world is far from liberal. Socialists march for LGBTQ+ rights. Radical Islam brutally persecutes them. Ironically, everything the Western left hates about its own conservative right is 100 times worse in the Muslim societies they are now defending. So what actually connects them? One thing only: a shared hatred for the West and its values. And Mehdi works right in the middle of this, and he is an absolutely master at it. He creates hatred for the West and hatred for Israel by pretending to care about human rights. Mehdi follows a specific plan, the QBP. And if you don't know what the QBP is, that's fine, I just invented the term. It stands for the Qatari blueprint. The Qatari blueprint is simple. Use the language of human rights, freedom, and progressiveness to attack Israel in the West, while completely ignoring the terrible human rights records of Muslim countries. Mehdi Hasan only cares about Gazans when he can blame Israel. Hamas tortures Gazans. You will never hear a single word about it from Mehdi. Before I give you some quick examples of the Qatari blueprint, please help me reach 500,000 subscribers. It is just one small click for you, but it means everything to me. Now, let's look at a few examples of the Qatari blueprint so you can spot the pattern yourself. The digital channel Al Jazeera Plus writes in its bio, Al Jazeera Plus is a unique digital news and storytelling project promoting human rights and equality, holding power to account, and amplifying voices of the powerless. Sounds amazing, right? But in reality, most of their videos are just attacking Israel and the United States. Look at how they reported on Keir Starmer's resignation in the United Kingdom. Of course, you won't hear a single word about the civil war in Yemen, where nearly 500,000 people have been killed. Or take the channel Double Down News, whose slogan is, serve the people, not the power. Sounds very nice, but their content is obsessive. Israel, Israel, Bibi, Bibi, Bibi. Serve the people? Apparently, women in Afghanistan under the Taliban don't count as people to them because this channel hasn't said a word about them. Then there is the channel Uncivilized, which describes itself as a space for people and places that have been underrepresented, silenced, or erased. But you won't hear them say that according to UN data, 85% of women in Egypt have gone through. Look it up, it's insane. Instead, the channel mostly shows anti-Israel propaganda. And that is exactly what Mehdi Hasan's new media company, Zeteo, looks like. Its official description promises a strong bias for the truth and an unwavering belief in the media's responsibility to the public. Unfiltered news, bold opinion. But the actual videos, anti-Israel, and anti-America. All of these channels are connected in some way to Qatar, a radical, anti-democratic Islamic dictatorship where there is no real freedom of speech. And Mehdi worked for Qatar-owned Al Jazeera for years. I wonder if Mehdi would ever dare to share his bold opinions on the streets of Doha. Mehdi and all the channels I mentioned are allowed to criticize Israel, of course. But look at the tactic. They don't call their channels, "We hate Israel in the West." Instead, they use progressive words to attack only Israel and the United States, while closing their eyes to what is happening in the Muslim world. A video about Arab slave trade in history, which lasted much longer and killed more people than the transatlantic slave trade, not a word. The fact that most Muslim countries are dark dictatorships, not a word. The attacks on Christians in the Middle East, not a word. The fact that 17 out of the 20 most dangerous countries in the world for LGBTQ people are Muslim? Not a word. Pakistan kicked out over 1.5 million Afghan refugees back to the Taliban. Absolutely silence. And this isn't an accident. It is a plan. Qatar is the main financial and media backbone of the Muslim Brotherhood worldwide. In an internal Muslim Brotherhood document found in the US by the FBI, it says clearly, the Islamization of North America, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands in the hands of the believers. Qatar gives the money, the Muslim Brotherhood gives the ideology, and the Red-Green Alliance is the Trojan horse designed to weaken the West from within. Mehdi Hasan is the face of this project. Just a quick side note on how deep the damage goes. People talk a lot about how the Democratic Party in the United States has become anti-Israel, which is true, but it also became anti-America. Long-term polls by Gallup tracking national pride show a crazy stat. 20 years ago, over 90% of Democrats said they were proud to be American. Today, that number has dropped to a historic low at around 35%. This didn't happen by accident. China does it through algorithm and bots on TikTok, and Qatar does it by pouring billions of dollars into top US universities. Qatar is the biggest foreign donor to American colleges. Qatar isn't donating, it is buying power and using it to make American students hate their own country. They brainwashed the younger generation, constantly telling them that America is a bad, racist country. The result? A total collapse of national identity. They are trying to make Americans hate themselves, and the polls prove they are succeeding. And Hassan is a sharp debater. He knows exactly what to say, and more importantly, what not to say. He reminds me of what the British ambassador, Sir William White, once said about the Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid II. He has never been caught telling the truth. But Mehdi Hasan did tell his truth once. Of course, it was inside a mosque, because what you tell progressive on social media is very different from what you say inside a mosque. In that famous leaked video, he was caught comparing non-Muslims to animals and calling them non-believers.
Well, if we lose the moral high ground, we are different from the rest of the non-Muslims, from the rest of those human beings who live their lives as animals, bending any rule to fulfill any desire.
The French Orientalist scholar Lamens, he once wrote that the Quran is not far from considering unbelief, disbelief as an infirmity, as an illness, as a disease of the human mind. And of course, the kafir, the disbeliever, the atheist who remain deaf and stubborn to the teachings of Islam, the rational message of the Quran, they are described in the Quran as, quote, a people of no intelligence, Allah said, not of no morality, not of no belief, a people of no intelligence, because they are incapable of the intellectual effort it required to shake off those blind prejudices, to shake off those easy assumptions about this world, about the existence of God. In this respect, the Quran described the atheist as cattle. If Yazid was not a kafir, then at the very minimum, he was a fasir, a transgressor, a breaker of Islamic laws, a corrupt individual, a tyrant, a killer, a drunkard, a dog lover, a music lover, a homosexual, a pedophile.
When that clip came out, he quickly apologized, claiming those were things he said 15 years ago when he was young. Sure, but Mehdi didn't actually change his ideas. He just changed his words. Now he defends LGBTQ rights and human rights, but only in the West, not in Muslim countries. He will never use the words infidels or kuffar in front of his progressive audience. Even more interesting, in a private letter he once sent to the editor of the conservative British newspaper, the Daily Mail, when he was trying to get a job there, he wrote that deep down he actually has many conservative views and is a big believer in the role of religion in public life. Yeah, right, the Islamic religion in a Western public life. I want to show you a classic example of how he changes history from a video he made against the host Bill Maher.
Bill Maher is a lot of things. Annoying, unfunny, misogynistic, Islamophobic, and of course, pro-Israel. The noted atheist is very, very pro the Jewish state.
Right from the first sentence, he does exactly what progressives love to do: name-calling and shaming. Bill Maher represents everything that used to be great about the Democratic Party. He loves America, he's pro-democracy, which doesn't exist in Muslim countries, and he's pro-women's rights, which also don't exist in Muslim countries. Watch how he sets up his argument.
They don't know shit. And their leaders are not standing up and saying, kids, you don't know what's going on here. Every war Israel has fought is a war of defense.
Right.
Every war, they were attacked first.
The kids don't know shit, Bill? Or is that you? Time for a debunking. Let's look at Israel's wars, because Israel's fought a lot of wars. But let's just take a look at 3 of the major ones. Who started them?
To anyone who doesn't know history, this sounds like a normal start. But if you know history, you notice the massive lie immediately. Why did Mehdi Hasan skip the biggest, most important, and the very first war, the 1948 war? He skipped it because Mehdi knows the truth, and the truth completely destroys his narrative. He knows that in 1948 there was no occupation and there were no settlements. There was only one thing: an existential war launched by the Arab leadership led by Amin al-Husseini, a man who collaborated with Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, openly calling the Arabs to exterminate every single Jew in the land of Israel and the Arab world. But because mentioning Nazi collaboration spoils Mehdi's progressive fairy tale, he just erased 1948 and skipped straight to 1956. Now, did Israel start the Sinai campaign in 1956 with Britain and France? Yes, but Hassan forgets to tell you the context. Ever since Egyptian President Nasser took power, he said all the time that he wanted to destroy Israel. Egypt sent the Fadayun, terrorist groups in the 1950s that crossed into Israel to kill civilians, like the 1954 bus massacre, where they murdered 12 passengers, including children. Israel went to war to stop this deadly threat on its borders. And by the way, after the war, the Fadayun terror network in Gaza was destroyed. Mehdi Hasan continues to twist history when he comes to the 1967 Six-Day War. He blames Israel, completely ignoring that Nasser kicked out the UN forces, put armies on the border, said he was going to wipe Israel off the map, and started an act of war by closing the Strait of Tiran to Israeli ships. Hassan also lies about Jordan. Israel sent clear message to King Hussein on June 5th, begging him to stay out of the fight. Jordan chose to open fire anyway, bombing Jerusalem and Tel Aviv that morning, and as a result, they lost the old city of Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria. He does the exact same thing with the first Lebanon war. Lebanon is a very sad story. Israel had zero border problem with it. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, that border was literally called the Good Fence. But because Lebanon was a weak country with a Christian majority, Islamists turned it into a base against Israel. First the PLO, then Syria, and today it is Iran and Hezbollah. Lebanon went from a Christian modern country to a failed Muslim state because of the exact same Islamists that Mehdi Hasan protects. As someone who actually knows history, I could go into a million more details and show you how Mehdi Hasan lies in every sentence. But I won't do that because that's exactly the trap. That's exactly where they want us, like defending ourselves, constantly explaining and apologizing. Instead of defending Israel, let's talk about Hassan and the root of the problem, because Hassan accidentally showed his true face in a video where he explains how to debate Zionists.
I have been debating hardcore Zionists, Israelis, supporters of Israel for years now, decades. And the conversation always comes back to one line, one phrase, one talking point. Do you or do you not support Israel's right to exist? You've all heard that line before, right? It's the go-to move. If you don't support Israel's right to exist, you're an extremist, you're an anti-Semite, you want to wipe Israel and millions of Israeli Jews off the map. Even many critics of Israel are often left frantically conceding, yes, of course I support Israel's right to exist, but you don't have to concede on this point. It's a bullshit argument. Some of you may know I wrote a book about debating, and if you don't know, you know now. And today I want to share with you 3 arguments you can use if you find yourself stuck in a debate with someone who insists you recognize Israel's right to exist.
Look, I've watched many interviews with Mehdi Hasan, and pro-Israel debaters don't actually use this as a cheap trick. Hasan is acting like a kid who walks out of a store and starts yelling to everyone on the street. I didn't steal. Why would I steal? I have money. I didn't steal anything. By creating a whole tutorial video just to teach people how to avoid saying Israel has a right to exist, he is literally admitting to everyone that he wants the Jewish state gone. His arguments in that video are weak, and Nick Matau made a great response video to it. I will put the link in the description below. Nick is great. I hope to meet him someday. But let's look at the big picture. Hasan could easily say, look, there are 50 plus Muslim majority countries in the world, and it is totally fine for there to be one single Jewish state. I have heavy criticism of its politics, but I don't argue against its right to exist. But he can't say that because he fundamentally hates the fact that Israel exists. Everything else, human rights, occupation, Gaza, is just a marketing tool to sell his ideas to progressives in the West. Hasan is obsessed. 70% of his content is about attacking Israel. Like, seriously, how many Muslims need to be killed by other Muslims around the world for Mehdi Hasan to care? 500,000 dead in Yemen, he doesn't have a single video on it. The mass deportation of 1.5 million Afghans from Pakistan, 0 coverage. And we need to understand something. Hasan isn't even truly pro-Palestinian, because if he were pro-Palestinian, he would show you videos of Hamas killing people in the streets of Gaza. And there are dozens of these videos. When he hosts his Egyptian friend, Bassem Youssef, he will never ask him, hey, why does Egypt, who has a border with Gaza, refuse to help Gazans and keep its border completely locked? The Palestinians, just like Western progressives, are nothing but a tool for Mehdi Hasan. His goal is to weaken the West and destroy Israel. Don't let him fool you. If you want to help me expose him, share this video. Every family has that one person who fell into progressive trap. I have one too, and it is fine, but they need to see this. Mehdi Hasan has Qatari billions backing him. Behind my videos is just me. And no, the Mossad isn't funding me either. So if what I'm doing here is important to you, the link to my coffee is right down here in the pinned comment. Only thanks to my supporters can I keep uploading videos. See you next week. Yalla bye.